Evan Smith, might that be Louise?
Yes, that would be
Okay,
Louise.
that's Louise's alter ego. Okay, I'll wait until she's on.
It's a new one. Okay.
That's how she does all her stealthy Zoom work. Ah, there she is.
Hi,
Hello.
Louise.
Morning, Louise.
Hello, Louise. All right. Good morning to anyone, or hello to anyone who is watching this Bible study after the fact, whether in the morning or not. We're really glad that you are following along and hope that you will let us know that you are. And let us begin with prayer. Holy One, we are too often blinded by trivial matters. Lord, may our attention be diverted now from these things, and may we become as little children, trusting and seeking with love to cross bridges that we have not crossed in the past. Amen. Especially in the next few weeks, let us be instruments of healing and grace. All right, dear friends, so glad you are here. And so, since the Tuppers seem to be in Maryland for the time being,
Nested for a while, yeah.
we're asking where in the world is Isaac? And last week we talked about how he seemed to be nowhere near his father. And then Abraham died, and he was down in Bir Lahai, I can never say that, Bir Lahai Roy. And then today we'll see him traveling up to Gerar, or Gerar, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but generally this area here near the coast, near the land of the Philistines, what's now Gaza, etc. So that's just important as we go forward with this story in Genesis 26. So let me do this. Does anyone have any lingering thoughts from last week? Last week we saw the marriage of Isaac and Rebekah, and then the birth of the twins Esau and Jacob, Jacob grasping at Esau's heel, a great metaphor for the way Jacob winds up living his life. And then chapter 25 ended with Jacob cheating Esau out of his birthright, or tricking him out of his birthright. So, any thoughts about any of that before we move forward?
It wasn't really a trick.
Well, yeah, but we could say he blackmailed him, right?
I mean, it wasn't ethical, perhaps, but he
Correct.
was upfront about what he was doing.
True.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just, yeah, so I guess, yes, blackmail is probably a better word. We'll just look at this last paragraph again from 25. Or actually, let's back up a little bit more.
Blackmail, he was making a deal. Part of the deal. Come on.
The art of the deal. That's right. So
Esau just didn't have a good lawyer.
yeah. So let's just remind ourselves about the birth of Esau and Jacob to get Ray back up to speed from where we left off. When her time, Rebecca's time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy mantle, so they named him Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand gripping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man living in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he was fond of game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And then this is the story I was mentioning. Once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the field and was famished. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stuff, for I am famished." Therefore he was called Edom. Second time Esau is connected with the color red. Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." Esau said, "I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So that's where we left off last time.
Why would he say he's about to die?
He was so hungry.
Yeah.
He was famished.
It was hyperbole, but still.
Exactly.
Mm.
That's right.
Sorry. Wasn't...
No apologies. So yes, I think it would be generous to say that Jacob, at the very least, took advantage of his brother's hunger for his own gain. So that gives us a little sneak peek into his character.
His brother does not seem to be very farsighted.
There is that. Yeah. All right. Would somebody like to read these first two paragraphs of chapter 26 for us? And we'll hear some familiar themes.
Sure.
Thanks, Fred.
There was a famine in the land, besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. Then the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land of which I shall tell you. Dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I have given all these lands, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. And I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of heaven. I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws."
Could you read the next
Sure.
through 11?
So Isaac dwelt in Gerar, and the men of the place asked about his wife, and he said, "She is my sister." For he was afraid to say, "She is my wife," because he thought, "Lest the men of this place kill me for Rebekah, because she is beautiful to behold." Now it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked through a window and saw, and there was Isaac, showing endearment to Rebekah his wife. Then Abimelech called Isaac and said, "Quite obviously she is your wife, so how could you say she is my sister?" Isaac said to him, "Because I said, lest I die on account of her." Keep going.
Through verse 11.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the people might soon have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt on all of us." So Abimelech charged his people, saying, "He who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death."
Thank you, Fred. So what do you notice?
A recapitulation of everything we've heard before.
Yeah.
The same themes, same stories, same offspring, blessings to all nations. I mean, it's all repeated again.
Yep.
And a total lack of faith in God's promise.
That's a point.
At least he didn't pimp her out.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to what Fred said about total lack of faith in God's promise. Where do we see lack of faith on Isaac's part?
God has said he's going to make a mighty nation out of him, and Rebecca hasn't borne any children yet that I can see.
He didn't for about 20 years, I think.
Well,
maybe that was part of God's plan to keep him alive by saying she's my sister.
Well, he might have told somebody about that then. This was not, as far as I could tell, this was not God's idea that he'd go this route.
How do you know that, Fred? Please.
Same way I know everything I know about God.
Well,
with certainty, of course.
Be bold. Oh, this conversation is just delightful.
yeah.
Okay, all right. So I noticed something that was slightly different about Fred's translation from the NRSV at verse 3. Fred, could you read verse 3 again from yours? Would you mind?
Sure. Dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I give all these lands, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father.
Thank you. Do you see anything different in what's on the screen?
As an alien.
Yeah. That really jumped out at me. Let me just see what the Hebrew text says. Okay, sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. Da, 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 da. Okay, so it looks as though Fred's translation may be more faithful to the Hebrew on that verse, if I could open this up. Come on.
And once again, I mean, dwell in this land, and I will bless you. You shouldn't have to hide who Rebecca is.
Well,
He's new in town, and I think he doesn't necessarily trust these people. Although if he knows Abimelech personally, then you'd think he'd say, "By the way, here's my wife," and be open about it.
yeah. So the verb sojourn, gore, implies in it to be a stranger, and that makes sense. You sojourn somewhere where you do not live. So there is implicit in that this idea that Isaac is an alien in the land. Why might that matter? If he's sojourning, he's an alien, and then God says, settle in the land that I shall show you.
He's more of a guest in the land than
He's going to have to take it from them too. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
boy, and the battles go on.
Mm-hmm. One commentary I was looking at suggests that this King Abimelech is not the same King Abimelech that
I wondered about that.
and if you think about the chronology, that would make sense.
Yeah.
But it's the same trope, right? It's King Abimelech. It's the fear is that he's going to be he or any of his people are going to inadvertently sleep with this man's wife. And so it's as John said, it's exactly a recapitulation of what we've seen before. Wanted to share with you from Altar. Those who have been following Altar may have seen this. This is sort of his gloss on the whole chapter. This chapter is the only one in which Isaac figures as an active protagonist. Before, he was a bound victim. After, he will be seen as a bamboozled, blind old man. That's so sad. His only other initiated act is his brief moment as intercessor on behalf of his wife in 25:21. Textual critics disagree about whether this chapter is a mosaic of Isaac traditions or an integral literary unit, and about whether it's early or late. What is clear is I love this word, architectonics of the larger story require a buffer of material on Isaac between Jacob's purchase of the birthright and his stealing of the blessing. A buffer that focuses attention on Isaac's right to the land and on his success in flourishing in the land. All of the actions reported here, however, merely delineate him as a typological heir to Abraham. Like Abraham, he goes through the sister-wife experience, is vouchsafed a covenantal promise by God, prospers in flock and field, we haven't gotten there yet, and is involved in a quarrel over wells. He remains the pale and schematic patriarch among the three forefathers, preceded by the exemplary founder, followed by the vivid struggler. So poor Isaac.
Oh dear. Never thought of Isaac that way.
It's not the most flattering uh, depictions of him, but it's all true from the text. Uh, I also wanted to share this. I couldn't find a lot of artistic representations of this scene, but this hangs in the Vatican, and Isaac and Rebecca spied upon by Abimelech, who apparently is over here in the window somewhere.
Hmm.
Um, I love that the NRSV says that Isaac is fondling Rebecca. And how, Fred, how did yours put it? Yours was much more polite. Um,
Showing
showing affection too, but we
Canoodling.
Showing endearment.
and showing endearment.
Dear.
So we get the picture. And so, there we have the king. This is an eclipse of the sun. Chuck, you may be able to tell us more about some of the symbolism here, or, the artistic technique. But, here we have them. They almost look like statues to me, the way they're figured here.
It
Any,
doesn't look like anything by Raphael that I've ever seen. I think it says Raphael and Workshop or
yeah,
something.
yeah. So
yeah.
his students, I guess.
Yeah, it's just, I don't think it's him at all.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I don't know Raphael that well, but from what
Yeah.
I do, it didn't. But the fact that it's interesting to me that this hangs in the Vatican.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, there's the king spying on Isaac and Rebecca, canoodling outside the window there. Any other comments or thoughts about the beginning of this chapter? This is one of those moments, I think, and we've talked about this. I don't remember if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago. Fred was talking about this, that it's a reminder that this is born of the oral tradition, right? Because, when you hear that recapitulation, you can just imagine the storyteller, as Ray says, around the campfire saying, now there was a famine in the land. And then just some of those same phrases get repeated. And so we see, the same things that Abraham does are being passed on to Isaac. Trying to think if there was something else I wanted to point out, and I don't remember what it was. So,
Which happened first? It's in the way it's written. It says Isaac went to Gerar to King Abimelech, and then the next verse is the Lord appeared and said, "Don't go down to Egypt." Wait a minute, I just turned left. What
yeah,
was the question about going down to Egypt?
so one of the things, yeah, because I was reading a commentary about that as well, and it's not, the text doesn't suggest that Isaac even thought about going to Egypt. So does God just say this? By the way, just in case you were thinking about it, don't do it. So it's an interesting inclusion there. Why does it say that? Good question.
But doesn't it tie back to this isn't the former famine in the days of Abraham, who
Yep.
did go down to Egypt. So,
Yep. Exactly. Don't. So that's a good point. That's an interruption. That's not exactly the same as with Abraham. So yes, because if we're following the trope exactly, famine equals go to Egypt. And of course, we know that fast forwarding to Joseph, famine, go to Egypt. So, there is this repetitive pattern. And so in this case, it's broken. Let's just see what the footnote says here. The Lord appeared to Isaac. Oh, the Lord appeared to him. Okay, anything else there? Okay. So why don't would someone like to read these 3 paragraphs from 12 to 25?
Mhm.
I will.
Thanks, Ellie.
Isaac sowed seed in that land, and in the same year reaped 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich. He prospered more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds, and a great household, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped up and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of his father Abraham. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, you have become too powerful for us." So Isaac departed from there and camped in the Wadi Gerar and settled there. Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of his father Abraham, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham, and he gave them the names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herders of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herders, saying, "The water is ours."
Hmm.
So he called the well Esek, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that one also. So he called it Sitnah. He moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." From there he went to Beersheba, and that very night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you and will bless you and make your offspring numerous for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there, called on the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well.
Thank you. What do y'all want to talk about here?
Digging a lot of wells.
Digging a lot of wells.
Which is hard work and dangerous. And you don't know how deep it's going to go. And
Mm.
I mean, how do you know where to dig?
Exactly.
Mm.
For which,
Divine, one of
Yep.
the most
He,
divine.
he
You
dug
know,
them where his father had dug them before they were filled up.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
It's so interesting to me. We talked last week about how after the near sacrifice, Isaac got as far away from Abraham as he could. And yet the story has him reliving a lot of Abraham's journey.
Mm.
So that's just, I don't know what to do with that necessarily, but
Mm.
that strikes me.
Patty, can you put the map back up?
Sure.
I'd like to see how far he's bouncing around.
Let's see.
There's Gerar.
Gerar, Beersheba, Rehoboth. Okay.
Yeah. And so the Philistines would be over here on the coast. The word Palestine comes from Philistine. So, it's really where Gaza is, etc. There on the coast. So this is where he's coming into contact with Abimelech and the Philistines. And there's Hebron over here, Mamre, where Abraham and Sarah are buried. Jerusalem's up there. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. What do you think about these wells? Hard to dig.
And he would naturally, I mean, if he's in the area and he needs a well, we might as well clear out the ones that are already dug.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
wonder why they were filled in by the Philistines. Is that to keep them from the area from being inhabited, or is there
Yeah.
something else?
That
Must
would make
be.
sense.
Keep the transients out. Yeah.
Mm.
Let me see if my study Bible has a note on that. Intuitively, that's what I assumed, that it was
Mm.
just a way of
Out the
maintaining the
riffraff,
unclaimed land. What was that, Fred? Sorry.
keeping out the riffraff.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Well, my notes don't say anything about the well, but I think that's a fairly, yeah, I think that's a fairly good assumption that it's about protecting the land from the sojourners, the foreigners.
Can you check the footnotes for those, the names for those three wells, please?
Yes, yes, yes.
Contention.
So let's see. Um,
The first one is Essek.
yes.
And Sitna.
Contention. It's interesting because in my ear, Essex sounds an awful lot like Isaac, but perhaps they're, I looked it up and I don't think they're etymologically connected. And Sitna is enmity, and Rehoboth, broad places. The word for salvation in Hebrew means broad space. So there's something about, Rehoboth. So next time you go to the beach, Fred, think about that, that this is a more godly place. And let's just see what Rehoboth means in Hebrew. I've forgotten exactly what it means. Wide places or streets. Yeah. So you get that sense of expanse. I imagine it as welcome. It's a much more positive image than quarrel and enmity. The
It
Lord.
sounds like,
Oh, go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
I was just looking, when the map was up and looking at the topography, there was a clue that these places were all on the line of the hills, the mountain. The watershed does flow in that direction, which is a contention for the people in the Palestinian territories, because the water flows toward the Israelis and not toward the Palestinians. But nonetheless, it, yeah, well, anyhow.
Let's flow towards the sea, though.
Yeah, yeah, but that would create a plain. It'd be good for grazing too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And so Isaac is a herder, or he has herders. He is this rugged, outdoor kind of guy, and we know that Jacob, his son, is not like him in that way, and that's why Isaac prefers Esau. What was I going to say to you? There was something about that. Where was it? Oh, yes, it was on verse 22. The Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. So again, keeping with this idea of being sojourners, that's not their land, it's not their native territory, but God has made this space, this broad space. And because of that, we shall be fruitful. So we can see here, this is where these tensions begin, right? God has done this. God has given us this place. We will flourish here. So Isaac builds an altar, calls on the name of the Lord, and pitches his tent. So, puts down his stake, literally, and digs a well. Okay, anything else?
Which is a definite indication that I'm here and I'm going to stay.
Exactly. Again, not that different from Abraham purchasing the plot of land for Sarah's burial up in Canaan. Like, okay, this is my place. This is where the ancestors are going to rest. And so here, Isaac pitches his tent, he digs his well, he sets up camp. This is his spot. Okay. Would somebody like to read the rest of chapter 26?
I'd be happy to do that, Patty.
Thank you, John.
Uh, then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzath, his advisor, and Phicol, commander of his army. Isaac said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you?" They said, "We see plainly that the Lord has been with you. So we say, let there be an oath between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, so that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you, and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. We are now the blessed of the Lord." So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. In the morning they rose early and exchanged oaths, and Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. That same day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug, and said to him, "We have found water." And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judah, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Little foreshadowing there. So let's see, Sheba resembles the word for oath. Okay, so promise, oath, covenant. Um, what do you think about all this? Any themes that you
Mm.
notice here?
They want peace between the Abimelech's people and Isaac's people.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
and promises of nobody's going to fight with anybody.
Mm.
Struck me because the way it is.
Famous last words.
Exactly.
It's been that way ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So Esau is 40 years old, and he's just now taking wives, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. And his brother is still single.
Let's see.
Yep. We haven't gotten to Jacob's love triangle yet.
Love life yet.
Yeah. His complicated love life. It's interesting.
Wonder,
Oh, go ahead, Ray.
I was just wondering on the marriage issue there. I mean, yes, he's 40. It doesn't say that this was the first wife he had or the only wife.
Mm.
So,
They had two at once.
There are two here, Judith and Basemath.
yeah,
Um,
but
yeah,
so I mean, he may have been married to others.
could be.
Mm. Yeah. And
But-
they were both Hittites.
No, I read that differently. I thought that it was giving Judith's ancestry. She is the daughter of Beri the Hittite and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. So Beri and
Oh.
Basemath are her parents. That's
Yeah.
how I read that at first, but
Mm.
Yeah, that my study Bible
fluctuation.
says that these are two separate women. These are two wives.
Okay.
Yeah, because initially
does
I
your-
had it that way too.
Does your study Bible say? I remember earlier when Abraham was with the Hittites, the study Bible said these weren't Hittites. They didn't come until later. And
Mm-hmm.
we've got Palestinians, or I'm sorry, Philistines, who are interacting with Isaac. I wonder if we now have got real Hittites, or if these are still Philistines or other people.
Faux Hittites. Let me double check. Let's see. My study Bible here doesn't say it, but it does refer me back to chapter 24, which is where we were. 24. Uh, um,
boy's just a bully. He just came over and knocked her out of her
Mhm.
spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Um,
So I think it was back in 24, the footnote said these weren't really Hittites because
yeah.
they were much later time.
Yeah, it says the names are Semitic, not Hittite. And then it says, then it sends me back to 20. You know how the footnotes do that? They'll just say CF 2634. You just go back and forth without any real explanation. So that's a good question.
I think I would also ask, I mean, if we've got, well, up until almost the present time, political marriages have been ways of assuring peace with, a neighboring group or something. So, I mean, maybe these were strategic marriages with varying tribes that were, or bands of tribes that were there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't hear that this was a great love match.
No.
Yeah.
Um, just going back to the question about the Hittites, in chapter 23, when Abraham buys the plot of land for Sarah's grave, um, it says, Abraham rose up from beside his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a stranger and an alien residing among you. Give me property among you for a burying place so that I may bury my dead out of my sight. So here again, we have this theme of the stranger and the alien having a claim, having a stake to this property that is not theirs. And that's the place where it says that the Hittites weren't really Hittites, they were Semitic. And so I'm assuming that's the case here too. What else was I going to
This
say?
is repeats verses in chapter 21 about Abimelech going to Abraham with Phicol, the commander of his army, and it's the same name in verse 25 of chapter 21.
Good.
And they called it Beersheba then, so now they're calling it Beersheba.
Uh-oh, are we frozen?
Dug the well that they were fighting.
Yeah, I can see Abimelech as a king having the same name as a previous generation of king, but I don't know about Phicol, the commander.
Mm.
Yeah. So let's see what Alter has to say. I actually didn't get a chance to look at the end and his notes. Let's see. Let's go back here. Let's see. You all there? Sorry about that. I think can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Hi.
You're back.
My Wi-Fi cut out for a second. Just looking at the wells, the struggle over wells, which replays an episode in the Abraham stories, but is given more elaborate emphasis, works nicely as part of the preparation for the next round of the Jacob-Esau conflict. So clearly Alter sees this whole thing as an interlude, almost I don't want to say a placeholder, but it kind of reads that way. A water source is not easily divisible. The spiteful act of the Philistines in blocking up the wells expresses a feeling that if we can't have the water, nobody should. I love that. So childish, so human. At the end, Isaac's workers discover a new undisputed well and call it Rehoboth, which means open spaces. We're being prepared for the story in which only one of the two brothers can get the real blessing, in which there will be bitter jealousy and resentment, and which in the long run will end with room enough for the two brothers to live peaceably in the same land.
Cut that.
So,
We'll freeze.
coming attractions, right? And then talking about Esau took his wife, blah, blah, blah. This brief notice about Esau's exominus exogamous union obviously is distinct from the preceding stories about Isaac, it's probably placed here to remind us of his unworthiness to be the true heir, thus forming a kind of envelope structure with the spurning of the birthright in the last verse of chapter 25. I love how Alter thinks about these things. And in this way serves to offer some sort of justification in advance for Jacob stealing the blessing in the next episode. It also lays the ground for the end of the next episode, in which Rebekah will invoke the need for Jacob to find a wife from his own kin as an excuse for his hasty departure for Mesopotamia. So anything else there before we move on to chapter 27?
Is the fact that they keep emphasizing, how they were aliens in the land and treated well or treated badly, is that going to have any bearing on the fact that when they get to the story of Exodus and the Egyptians and treated badly? Because all this was written down at pretty much the same time. The stories were old, but the writing was well past that. They might have been foreshadowing how you're supposed to treat strangers.
Well, and when you talk about that, that's the other thing. That I knew there was something else I wanted to pick up on, and that's in this paragraph. When Abimelech and Phicol come to Isaac, Isaac makes them a feast, and they eat and drink. So again, we have this. Just it may be just seem like a throwaway sentence there, but this theme of hospitality, welcoming of strangers. Even though Isaac is the one who is the sojourner, he's the one who's extending hospitality to Abimelech and Phicol and Ahuzath. So it's a good question, Fred. But
about the use of Abimelech's use of the word, the Lord has been with you and touched you, because wasn't that back with Abraham as well? This concept of the Lord, Abraham's Lord is sort of the same as Abimelech's Lord.
Exactly. And Abraham assumed that Abimelech and his people wouldn't know anything about the Lord. And then he was surprised to discover that. So yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for picking that up. And it's Abimelech who wants to make a covenant. And this whole theme of covenant up until this point has come from whom?
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
But covenants were common.
Well, right. But
era.
I know. But in this story, if we think about this as the arc of the narrative, right? Who's the one initiating these covenants throughout the Abraham cycle? It's always God. So now Abimelech is coming and wanting to cut a covenant with Isaac. It's really interesting to see who the players are, who's saying what, who's extending the hand, the olive branch to the other. Because Abimelech, he wants to have peace. And so
he might have been being threatened on another front.
We don't
was
know that.
Securing his allies while he could.
Yep. But for the sake of the way the story is crafted, there's this alliance now between Abimelech and Isaac. All right, should we push on a little bit to 27? Okay, here we go.
Yes. The story's getting good.
Stay tuned.
The story is getting good. The story is getting good. Would someone like to read these first two paragraphs for us?
I could do that.
Thank you, Chuck.
When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau, his brother, his older son, and said to him, "My son?" And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now, now then, take your weapons, your quiver, and your bow, and go out in the field and hunt game for me, and prepare for me a savory food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that I may bless you before I die. Now, Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare me savory food that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord I die. Now, therefore, my son, obey my word as I command you. Go to the flock and fetch me 2 good kids, that I may prepare them savory food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel, and I shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. His mother said to him, Upon me be your curse, my son. Fetch them to me. So he went, took, and brought to his mother, and his mother prepared savory food that his father. Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in her house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the kids she put upon his hands and upon the smooth part of his neck. And she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob.
Thank you, Chuck. Aha. Okay. So the story is getting good. What do you want to talk about?
Is there any more to read about smooth and hairy people? I mean, is there
Probably.
is there anything in those descriptions that I'm missing?
That's, I love the way you asked that question.
Or something?
Well, Jacob certainly is a smooth operator.
Mhm.
Oh,
Very good. Well, and when they're born, or in the, in the story of their birth and who prefers whom, Isaac prefers Esau because he is the herdsman. So, the fact that he's hairy, that just sort of fits. It almost makes him an archetype, both of them archetypes rather than real people, but they are, and then, yeah, the smooth operator, the one who's not hairy, you could think is Esau meant to be more masculine than Jacob? I don't know what
Stereotypes.
those characteristics are of each of them. However, there's sort of an implication there.
Well, see him as kind of Hoss, kind of the big dumb lunk.
Let's, yeah, I mean,
Well, and Esau isn't really driving this. His mother is.
That's the point.
Jacob isn't driving it. Yeah,
Jacob
Yeah.
isn't driving. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's what I was, meant before when I was saying, Rebecca's a bit of a,
He's just willing to go along.
yeah. I mean, she is, wow, she gives mothers a bad name, I'll tell you. She's really just conniving and manipulating and trying to get her favorite, trying to position her favorite. Um, what else do you notice?
Must have been very hairy.
Very hairy, exactly. Exactly. And going back to what Alter, was saying about Isaac, chapter 26 being the only place where Isaac really has any kind of agency. So beforehand, in 22, we see him bound to the rock. He's about to be sacrificed by his own father. And now he's this feeble, blind man who is not able to tell the difference between his children and is easily fooled. It's very much a disempowering or disempowered portrait of Isaac. It's interesting to me too, Rebecca's language here. Bring me, I heard your father say, bring me the game, blah, blah, blah. Now, verse 8. Now, therefore, my son, obey my word as I command you. That's fierce language from a woman at this time, right? And then she's very directive. And so this whole idea of whom is he obeying? And he is not going to push back against his mother. And so she manipulates and crafts this whole situation, this whole deception. Could we just read 18 through 29? I know it's almost time, but it would be great just to read this section. Would someone like to read through 29?
Elin, I think it's your turn.
Okay, so sorry, I was making a note. So from 18 to
29?
to 29. So he went in to his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, so that you may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? He answered, because the Lord your God granted me success. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went up to his father Isaac, who felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's son, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him, and he said, are you really my son Esau? He answered, I am. Then he said to him, bring it to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you. So he brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And then his father Isaac said to him, come near and kiss me, my son. So he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him and said, ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you.
Thank you, Elin. So the great deception. What do you notice or wonder about?
What a deception. Isaac was doubtful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rebecca got everything right except his voice. That
Yeah.
was, that was the only thing that sort of gave him away.
The smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. So here in this, this poetic section at the very end that Elin read, it's very sensory, right? The dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, plenty of grain and wine. And so again, this connection between person and land. I mean, and Jacob, sorry, is literally wearing the skin of an animal, the hide of an animal. Um, and so Isaac, passes on that blessing. And we've heard this language before. Cursed be everyone who curses you. Blessed be everyone who blesses you. Who says that previously?
God.
God, exactly. So here we are starting to see people picking up the language that previously had been reserved for God in this story, in this saga.
Mhm.
But we got Jacob just flat out lying
Yep,
that, twice
yep.
that doing it, and that I guess that struck me because it's like no, as I recall vaguely, people were tricking people, but that's more than just a trick. That's just a flat out misrepresentation.
Absolutely. Are you really my son Esau? I am. Wow. There's no getting around that. That's not just, uh, you know, being coy.
Lucky for them, they didn't have cataract surgery back then.
But Jacob's not just being coy. He says it. I am Esau. So he is really fallen to this
It's
place
very
of
much in his
outright.
character.
What's that, Ellie?
It's very much in his character as established, like at birth.
Yep. Grasping at his brother's heel, right? That's very evocative that he's always trying to climb over his firstborn brother. And again, they're twins. So he's, what, maybe a few minutes older, not that much, but those minutes matter.
And when his mother gets him into this, he never bats an eye. He never raises the issue.
Well, he don't.
He just makes up, he points out the difficulties they still have to deal with. But he's all in.
Yep.
Yeah.
He says, yeah, but look, he's hairy, I'm smooth. And Rebecca says, oh, I got that covered, honey. Don't worry about that. Details. So yeah, and he just, this fall, right? It's like he gets sucked in more and more and more. So in the space of just, first of all, he got the birthright for the bowl of soup, and now the blessing, and it's just, he's just spiraling down. And as John said, he just outright lies. Yes, I am Esau. Wow. And it's so.
The
Go
whole
ahead.
sequence has a comic element to it too. You could give this to a high school youth group and have them play it out.
Totally. I used to do that with my seventh graders at St. Andrews, and they thought it was just hilarious,
Yeah.
And it's a very vivid scene, and it's so human. I think that's why it gets to me, and kind of pathetic too, because there's Isaac, waxing poetic. Oh, the smell of my son. Yeah. Well, yeah, he is your son, but not the one you think it is.
These sections.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we stop there? And then we'll pick up with Esau's lost blessing next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Great
Thanks,
work,
Patty.
guys. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Always a
Patty.
lot of fun.
This
Thank
is
you.
so much fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.